All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Depends on wherever you're watching from. So glad to have you join us on this live stream. Yes, my name is Harry Uchibukala, lead designer at Graceville Solutions. Yes, I hope you're all doing great, and I'm so excited to have you join us tonight. So let's just go straight into what we'll be working on today. Right. All right. So let me just show you what we'll be working on tonight. It's going to be we're just working on the project. Yes, so this is what we'll be working on. It's a church flyer, and we're going to be building this from scratch. Okay, sorry about the background music. Too loud. Okay, so this is what we're working on today. So without wasting much time, let's just go straight into the mix. Yes, and let me just share my screen. So my apologies for the internet. Seems we're having trouble with the internet this evening. Do bear with us. I hope it improves. Yeah. So let me just share my screen, and so we go straight into what we'll be doing tonight. Right, so these are the resource files. These are the resource files we'll be working with tonight. All right. So this is an actual project I did for a my church where I worship. Yes, so I thought about to share it with you guys on tonight's stream. All right, so of course, create a new document. I'm sure most of us are not new to Photoshop, but for the sake of those watching, okay, that are still new to this, still new to Photoshop, of course, create a new project. And I'm going to be using the dimension 1920 by 1080 pixels for this project. Yes, so set your width and height to the width to 1920, the height to 1080. And ensure it's set to pixels, right? And then the resolution is 300. I always like setting my resolution to 300, so the final product will be very crisp and sharp, right? So I will always advise you to always do that whenever you're working on the project, because it will affect the final outcome of the project. Okay. All right, so when you're done, you click OK. You can, of course, title your project. Just say church file, church project or something, and then click create. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to lay it side by side here so that it will help you to assimilate better, right? So I'm going to share, this is the actual project I did, right? So I'm just going to share it on the same artboard, right, so that you can also see how I did it from scratch, and then you could also follow, right? So I'm going to duplicate this artboard by pressing Ctrl J on my keyboard, Ctrl J to duplicate the artboard. Okay, it's like something is happening. What's happening to my Photoshop? Okay. Okay, just a few minutes. So I'm using Topaz plugin, so it's kind of loading up. So just a few more minutes for that to come up. Okay, now you can also duplicate your artboard by just click on the artboard you want to duplicate, and then come to your move tool right here, and then just go to click the artboard tool. And then you see this plus sign around this artboard. So what it's trying to tell you that you can click any of the plus sign to duplicate your artboard, right? Or to create a new artboard, whichever one's convenient for you. So I think it's better we just create a new artboard. So I like using artboards whenever, okay, it just makes my workflow better, and then I can also duplicate assets so that I don't have to import assets every time, especially when I'm working on a large project and then they want maybe different variations of it. So maybe I'm working on a project for a brand and they want maybe a social media post, they want maybe an Instagram carousel, they want different assets, right? So all I just like using an artboard so that it would put everything in one particular canvas, right? So that I don't need to import them every time. All I just need to do is to drag and drop to make my workflow better. Our screen. Okay, so next I'm going to do is to bring in my background, right? So that's always the first thing you should do whenever you're working on a project. Your background is the key element because it will help you define the colors, your color choices. So let's bring in the background. Okay, you can either use place embed or just click and drag and drop it. So let me just drag and drop it into my Photoshop. And by the way, I'm using Photoshop 2022, yeah, but it will work. What I'll be showing here would work on virtually any recent version of Photoshop. Right, so I brought in my background, and next up I'm going to bring in, now it's always good practice to rename your background, sorry, your layers. It will help you for proper documentation so that your project won't be scattered and you end up being more confused as you get along, especially when you're working on a large project, right? So next I'm going to bring in my image, the image of the client. Yes, so I'm going to bring in the image. Okay, right here. Now, if you look at this particular one, the previous one, I made the image like a grayscale, right? Because I didn't want the design to be clashing, like so many colors clashing with the background. Because if you look at the background, it's pretty colorful. There's so much colors on the background, so I didn't want the. So I just wanted the image to be like to stand out from the design, right? So that there won't be too many colors. That's why I made it grayscale. So let me just show you how I did that. Okay, but if you want to leave your image, colored, it's up to you. But sometimes you have to look at how it connects with your background. That will help you to decide whether you should leave your image, in the saturated form or leave it at or make it as a grayscale. So let me just show you how I did this. Now I used a feature in Photoshop called Camera Raw, right? So let me go to, now to access your Camera Raw, you go to Filter. So it's like I said, it's up to you, right? But I perceive that if I left the image in the saturated form, it's not going to give me what I want, right? So let me show you how I did that. Like I said, go to Filter and go to Camera Raw filter. So it's going to open the Camera Raw interface for you in your Photoshop. Now, there's also a software called Lightroom that you can also retouch your photos, but since it's not a really comprehensive retouching, just a quick one, so that's why I prefer to use it to do it in Camera Raw. So the first thing I'm going to do right here is to desaturate the image. And desaturate the image like this, and then give it some vibrance, right? And then give it some contrast. Now ensure the contrast is not too much, right? Give it some contrast. Okay, give some shadows, turn down the whites. Okay, increase the blacks. Can also give some texture, right? The exposure, I think the exposure is okay. I don't need to touch the exposure. Let me give more contrast. Okay, turn down the saturation more, right? So you can just tweak your settings to whatever, okay, to your taste. So when you're done, you can just click OK, and then give it some time to process. Yeah, so as you can see right here, we have been able to achieve that effect. Now, but if you notice, right, the image is a bit dull, right? So I'm going to add some glow effect to the image. Now, let me show you how to achieve that. Okay. First of all, I'm going to group this and call it, let me call this the client image, right? Now, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a new layer. Just give a blank layer. I come to right here where I have this plus icon. I'm going to give the blank layer, then drag it into the folder where I have my image, right? And then I'm going to take my brush tool, pressing the letter B on the keyboard, and then take the foreground color tool. So this tool right here is called the foreground color, and the one behind is called the background color, right? So it's the color that's on top, which is your foreground color, that is the active one. Okay. So I'm going to sample a color from the background, a bright color, because now recall that we want to give our image a glow, just to add some glow. Because if you look at this very one, you can see that, okay, let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me go to this. Now, if you look at this image very well, right? Let me locate the image. Okay, let's see. There's the image again. Okay, where is that? Okay, now look at the image. You see that when I turn off this layer, right? There's this glow. You see that the image is now dull, right? But when I turn on the glow layer, you can see that there's this glow that comes from either side of the image, right? So that's what I want to achieve. You can see that the image seems to pop more when that glow effect is turned on, right? So that's what I want to show you how you can achieve that. Now, this is going to be a step-by-step tutorial, so just ensure you follow me carefully. Right, so I've added the new layer, and then I'm going to take my brush tool, like I said, sample a bright color from my background. Okay, let me go with a subtle cream color, right? And then I'm going to give it a glow here, okay? And then come to my blending options. Now, so if you are a designer, blending options it's one feature in Photoshop that you can't ignore. It will help you do a lot of stuff. Maybe I'll make a video again on how you can use, use your blending options. I think I'll make a video on that. So now go to blending options and just adjust it till you get the desired effect you want. Okay, I think I like screen. Screen is cool. So let me turn it off and on so you see what I'm talking about. So let me turn this effect off. Now you see the difference, right? You see the difference, but it's kind of interfering with the image. So all I need to do is to drag it to the side a bit, just to give that glow at the edges. Okay, so you see the before and the after, right? It's cool. So I can also duplicate it, okay, to be on the other side, on the right hand side. So all I need to do is to hold my Alt key, click and drag to duplicate it to be on this side. Right, so you see what I'm talking about, right? Then also adjust it, maybe. Okay. Now, if you notice, you see that this white portion here seems to be clashing with, like, you cannot see the glow effect because of the fact that it is also on a bright layer or a bright part of the image, right? So what I'm going to do, sorry, let me just turn on the glow layer on the other, okay. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, because if you are using a glow effect on a bright background, you won't see the effect. So what I'm going to do is to rotate the background a bit to have the darker portion on that very area. I can just adjust the background a bit so that I can get the darker portion on that very area. You can tweak your background, you can stretch it. Okay. Just whichever one that works best for you. Okay, something like this. Okay, just okay. Now I can adjust it. Okay. All I'm trying to do is that, okay, to make that glow effect we added very visible. Right? So you can, yes, there's something like that. Okay, I think this is fine. So just adjust it to whatever point you want. The bottom line is that that glow effect becomes visible. So you see that if I turn it off and on now, you see that there's a difference. Yeah. So this is the before and this is the after. So I can also bring the glow effect a bit close to where I want it. Right. So you can see the difference before. Right. So I can turn it on. Now, if you feel it's too much, you can of course reduce it. Come to where you have the opacity and just turn it down. Okay, you can reduce the opacity of the glow effect if you think it's too much. Something like this is fine. Right. Okay. So now I can group this and call it client image. So next up, I can start adding my text. So the thing is, there's no one way of doing these things. You just do what you think works best for you. There's no one way of doing it. Just do what works best for you, right? Okay. I think we're making progress here. Okay, so next up, I can start adding my text, right? So I'm going to bring in the logo here. So I'm going to bring in the logo. Now you see that the logo, okay. Okay, so all I need to do is to resize it. Resize it. Okay, let me adjust it a bit. Okay, let me have that. Let me just get this. There's part of this background I'm looking for. Yes. Yes, there's this part. Yes, I want it to have this. Yes. Just resize this part a bit. Okay, perfect. I want it to have this. Yes, that's what I want. Cool, good. All right. So now I can start adding my text, right? But I put an ellipse. I want to make the logo to really pop out. So I'm going to put an ellipse behind the logo, right? Now an ellipse is something like what they call a circular shape or a circle, but in Photoshop we call it ellipse. So in order to do that, I go to my shape tool, right here, take my ellipse tool. Now whenever you want to draw an ellipse or a circle, you have to ensure that you hold your shift key on your keyboard to give it that uniform circular shape, right? Now I'm going to sample a color from the background, right? Because if you look at what we have here, the feel of the ellipse is like a yellow, but I want it to be a color from the background. So I'm going to take my color picker tool and just sample a dark color from the background. Okay, something like this. Okay, and click OK. Now, if you look at the logo is behind the ellipse, but I want the logo to be on top of the ellipse. So all I need to do is to click the logo and drag it up. You know, one thing about Photoshop is that Photoshop works in layers, right? Everything you input into Photoshop, okay, it would automatically assign it to layers. So you have to always know how to manipulate your layers to give you the desired results, right? So I think the ellipse is a bit big. Let me resize it. All right, just like so. Okay, at a point, I will hasten this thing up. I just want to show you the very basics, so that at least if you get to know some of the basics, you can always recreate it anytime you want. So we have added our shape, our logo rather. So next up, I'm going to start adding my text. Now, if you look at the text here, this text is evenly spaced. I'm going to show you how to achieve that. So take your text tool by pressing the letter T on the keyboard. All right, and then I already have the text documents, the notepad. So I'm going to copy this, and then take my text tool, Ctrl V to paste. Now, when you add a text in Photoshop, most times it's going to be very compressed. Now, if you want to ensure it's evenly spaced, all you need to do is to come to where we have, there's a feature in Photoshop that we call tracking. Now, when you come to your property bar right here, okay, and by the way, before I proceed, I'm going to hold a free Photoshop training, okay, for total beginners and probably for intermediate. It's going to come up probably towards the first week of September, right? So ensure you are, you know, I'll be furnishing those members of my online community on WhatsApp and Telegram with the details of this upcoming, and it's, yes, to help for total beginners and those who want to upscale their design skills as well. It will come down by the grace of God first week of September. So ensure you are subscribed to this channel so you'll be notified as well, right? So I'm just going to try to hasten up now. So when you add a text to Photoshop, most times you see that it's going to be very compressed. Let me show you something like this. Is to come to where you have your property panel. Anything you add or you import in property, and you can only check it under your property panel right here. So